This is an ideal customer profile. An ideal customer profile is one of the most powerful growth tools for any early stage startup. On this episode, I'm going to walk you through how to actually create an ideal customer profile, and I'm going to show you two secrets to building an ICP that no one seems to be talking about. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, author of the book, How to Punch the Sunday Jitters in the Face, entrepreneur and angel investor. On this channel, I help startup founders, entrepreneurs, and business owners build an unstoppable strategy for their life and their business through belief and discipline. I drop a video like this with the TK energy every single Sunday, so be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you get notified when I drop an episode. All right, so every startup founder knows this. You need to build an incredibly scalable business. You need to go after a huge TAM, and you need to have a pretty big vision that you want to go after. That's what makes startups exciting, and that's what makes startups really work. But the best startup founders that actually get through the gauntlet, that get through to the Series A and the B and onwards, they know this other thing. They know that in the early days, you need to actually get super specific on an ideal customer. You need to solve a very specific small problem, and you need to do unscalable things to really get traction. Therein lies the conundrum. And one of the most powerful growth tools that I share on this channel is the ideal customer profile. Now, on my last episode, I walked you through the three most misunderstood things about building an ICP. You don't have to watch that video now. If you missed it, I'll link to it in the end, or I'll also link to it below. But on this episode, I'm gonna actually walk you through the core basics of building an ICP, and then I'm gonna walk you through the two things no one seems to be talking about building an ICP. Now, I used an ICP myself when I was building out ToutApp. We took it from 0 to 7 million ARR and then sold it to a market leader called Marketo. Over at Marketo, which had just gone private when I joined, we did a 2-year transformation, and the ICP, the ideal customer profile, was integral to the strategy for our success. It was so successful that we sold it to Adobe within 2 years after the transformation for $4.75 billion. So if you're ready to dig in, go ahead and smash the like button. And while you're at it, on my next episode, once you build the ICP, which I'll show you in this episode, I'm going to show you how to actually implement the ICP in your company, get everyone in line, and put it into your sales funnel. So first, if you want to build an ICP, let me cover the basics first. The basics are not that complicated. Where I always start with startup founders, the startup founders that are part of my Unstoppable program, where I coach them, or startup founders that I'm just advising at a workshop or through Capital Factory or 500 Startups, where I also do mentorship. I always start with, what is your dream customer list? So often with an ICP, you try to get really nuanced, you create fancy Sally and all these avatars. Look, the easiest thing to do is start with the 100 companies that you absolutely want as your customer. When you start there, something magical happens. You're able to actually shrink down the world. You're able to focus on the niche, because remember, the riches are in the niches, and you're able to pattern recognize what makes those companies similar. When you do that, you're able to write out your ICP. You're able to go in what type of industry you're looking to serve, what size the companies are, what kind of revenues they have, what geo they're in. Even more, you can double click on that and start to understand what kind of tools and software they're using. And lastly, at the end of the day, you're selling to people, even if companies are buying. And when you're doing that, you start to understand what roles you're selling into and what their ambitions are. So this is not that complicated. And if you want to really codify this, I have a 5-point startup strategy guide, completely free, you can download with the link below. And it has a template for building out an ICP. So you can fill out all of these key things into the ICP. None of these words are all that complicated, and you and I kind of understand what that's about. So why do a video on building an ICP? It's because so many people talk about Firmographics, demographics, psychographics, technographics, but they don't talk about the thing that really makes an ICP truly unstoppable. So these are your basics, and you should absolutely jot these down and flesh out who your ideal customer is. But once you do that, you need to dig into these two secrets. These two secrets that you need to add to your ICP that I did at ToutApp, that the really smart people that built out the ICP at Marketo did and really made the world of difference in actually making your ICP killer. The first thing you need to add to your ICP is triggers. Triggers are something that's happening within the company, inside the walls of the company, that makes it where they're more likely to need your product. They need your services or they need your solution because something just happened. For the ICP that we had tout out, we knew that we were focused on high growth technology companies. They were early adopters and they had sales teams. So every single time they raised a round of financing, we knew that we needed to go talk to them, because when they raised that round of financing, they would then be building out and scaling their sales team. And as part of that, they would need to improve the efficiencies of their sales people. And because of that, we were like, hey, you just raised some funding. You're probably gonna be expanding your sales efforts. Let us help you. That is an example of a trigger. Another example of a trigger is every single time a new CMO or a VP of marketing or a VP of demand gen got put into a company, every single time they had a new leader for marketing, we knew that it would be a good time to have a conversation around Marketo. This makes a ton of sense because a new leader would mean new initiatives, additional budget, and they would want to make some changes and shake things up. And in the case that they were a customer, we knew it was just as important to go talk to them because change in leadership means the renewal might be at risk at some point. When you identify what the triggers are within your ideal customer profile, and you add that to your profiling and you add that to your methodology, everything changes. So I shared a couple of examples of triggers, first as a new leader, then as a fundraise. If you're selling to public companies, for example, you can look at their quarterly financials, and if they miss a quarter and you happen to be able to help them actually accelerate their growth again, your software helps or your services help, you can go talk to them. So missed quarters is another great trigger. Also, the other thing to look at is new job listings. When a company posts a certain type of job listing that's relevant to the problem you're solving or the solution you provide, that starts to become a great trigger for your ideal customer profile. So triggers are something that people don't talk about enough, but when added to the ideal customer profile, it can incredibly accelerate the things that you're doing. Now, let me just pause here for a second, okay? So I shared the basics of building an ICP. I then shared triggers, which is one of two secrets that I've got in adding to your ICP to make it unstoppable. Are you starting to see the difference here? So as a startup founder, especially in the early stages, you really have two levers. You're either shipping code or closing deals. Ship code, close deals. Ship code, close deals. Those are the two things that you're doing to drive your growth, to get to the next stage of funding, to get to profitability, to get to revenues, whatever your goal is. Now, when you use an ICP the right way, you're able to increase the number of quality customer conversations. And when you're able to do that, you're able to then go in and actually close more deals. And out of those customer conversations, you can actually drive your product roadmap in a smarter way so you're shipping the right code. Everything starts to connect together when you are aligned around an ideal customer profile that is well defined. And that's why it's so important that you actually write it down. And when you think about something like triggers, the reason triggers are so powerful is because one of the oldest phrases in sales is, why you now? I first learned about this when I was working with John Barrows, who's a sales trainer and a sales coach, incredible person. And he was teaching our sales team about there's really two questions you got to answer when you're approaching a potential customer in your ideal customer profile. Why you, and that's part of the ICP, and why you now, and that is part of the trigger. So when you are actually honed in on the right trigger that drives decision making for whatever you're selling, whatever your product is, the why you now is answered for the customer just that much easier. And when you can do that, everything gets accelerated. If you're starting to see the brilliance of this, go ahead and let me hear from you in the comments. Let me just hear a yes. That way I know that you're getting this and you're going to incorporate triggers into your ideal customer profile, which will make a world of difference. Once you've got the basics down and you've got the triggers down, the next thing I want you to think about and add to your ICP are macro trends. If triggers are the things that are happening inside the company that makes them need whatever you're selling that much more, the macro trends are the things that are happening in the broader world that's impacting the company that makes it where they need you that much more. So let me give you an example of a macro trend. When we were selling ToutApp in the early days, all of a sudden more and more people were getting cell phones, more and more people were getting iPhones, and people were stopping to use desk phones. They were just not using them. And so when you cold call someone, it was just not possible to get them on the phone. It was harder than ever. Now, don't get me wrong, cold calling is not dead, and I'm not entering into that debate. However, at that time, companies started to wake up and realize that email prospecting, email as a channel for that, was more important than ever. That is a macro trend. And when we dug into that macro trend, we were able to find stats that said it took about 8 touches to convert a lead to an actual opportunity. 8 touches to convert a lead to an opportunity. So whenever we went to salespeople, sales leaders, and said, look, we help with email prospecting, email as a channel for prospecting, for building pipeline. And when you have a lead, it takes 8 touches over phone, email, and social to convert that lead to an opportunity. Do you want to talk? We can help with that. That macro trend immediately got the attention of people in our ideal customer profile. The entire conversation completely changed, and because we started with a macro trend that was impacting them, doubled with a trigger that was happening in the company, like a fundraising round or a new sales leader, they were compelled to have a conversation with us. So you can start to see when you combine the basics of an ICP, along with the triggers happening inside of a company, plus the macro trends that are impacting that company, and you bake that and codify that into your ideal customer profile, which you then mobilize, everything starts to change and everything starts to accelerate, and you become essentially unstoppable in your sales motion. So now you know how to actually build an ICP. An ICP is one of the most powerful growth tools that I know of to help you get to that next stage of funding, next stage of growth, or even profitability. It helps you run those 2 levers that you have as a startup founder that much better, shipping code and closing deals. Now in my next episode, I'm going to walk you through how to actually implement this ICP once you have built it. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon if you haven't already, so you get notified when I actually drop that episode next Sunday. In addition to that, I've also gone in detail on how you can actually build out a macro trend and build out triggers into an unstoppable sales funnel. So you can follow that link over here or over here if you haven't seen that episode yet. And as promised, if you want to understand the 3 most misunderstood things about building an ICP, you can check out that video here or here. I did that last week and launched it. It did really well, and I want you to check that out as well. Lastly, if you got value from this, please hit the like button. And also, if you are part of a mailing list with startup founders or a Slack channel with startup founders, our goal is to help as many startup founders as possible build an unstoppable strategy for their business so they can get to the next stage of growth. So it would mean the world to me and my team if you share it in your mailing list or your Slack channels or even on Twitter. That would mean the world. And lastly, I put together a 5-point startup strategy guide. This startup strategy guide includes how to build out the template. It includes an actual template for building out your ideal customer profile, as I've guided you through in this video. So be sure to follow the link below and download that. The ICP is just one of many growth tools that feed into your core startup strategy. And my 5-point startup strategy guide will actually help you answer simple questions to build out a 1-page strategy for your startup so that you can ship code, close deals, and get to that next stage of growth. I want to thank you for watching this video. I will see you next Sunday. And remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. But when you're with us, yours is going to be unstoppable. I'm TK, and I'll see you next Sunday.